right, dude, let's kick some butt.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I'm Gooey, joined as always by my co-host McKenna.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I'm excited for this episode. We've got two returning guests, two returning champions. Let's get them actually returning to us from our last main episode. We've got Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thank you for returning to us so soon. I appreciate you, especially after our last one being such a long episode. Thanks once again for offering some of your time to us.
No problem.
There's, always more to say about Duke Nukem than you think. So, and we have returning to us from not too long ago. We've got Leo Burke. Hey, Leo.
Hello.
Welcome back. It's great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
I guess it's nice and easy. We don't have to do any of our icebreakers or anything like that. So I feel like we might as well just hop right in, right, and start talking about our topics today. We're covering the games Aero Fighters Assault and Automobili Lamborghini. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that is
more or less.
Oh, goody.
Let's go ahead and do our flashback segment where we tell people what was going on at the time. And of course, we haven't really moved too much. We're kind of covering November 1997 here, November 8th to November 22nd. And it's not much farther from where we've been. But, okay, we've kind of gotten everyone's reaction, I think, already to Candle in the Wind being the number one song. So last episode, I did say we were going to try to track the chart progress of Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba, and I'm sad to say it gets up to number 7 on the charts, but then it drops back down. So fingers crossed, but once it starts to dip, I get kind of nervous. Good luck, Chumbawamba. Number one albums at the time, we had The Album by The Firm and Harlem World by Mace. Good time. We get a lot of good hip hop that comes up on the show. I feel like that's a topic on its own that we could cover sometime in an expanded episode. Number one movies, we had Starship Troopers, which we've mentioned before, The Jackal, which we just watched. I'd never seen that movie. Very good if you like to see Bruce Willis in different outfits, different get-ups.
If you don't like Jack Black, it's a fantastic film.
Oh, no
geez.
kidding.
Yeah, that brutal.
And if you've ever wondered what Bruce Willis looks like with blonde hair, now you know.
I heard there's a show premiering. I think it's out today, maybe?
This
it's
is
like
an ad
a
for
Jackal
the Jackal show.
Yeah.
They call him the Jackal.
Also, number one movie, the final weekend of this was Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which I'm kind of a fan of that movie. But I know that was a divisive movie in 1997. We got run of video games. Let me know if any of these games stick out to you. I think these are all pretty notable. We had Blade Runner, the PC game, Sonic R, Tomb Raider 2, and Worms 2.
Oh yeah, that's some good stuff that week.
Yeah,
Tomb Raider
2. Yeah, we've been playing a little bit of that.
Yeah, so. we played like the first couple levels like 2 months ago.
We've been busy, yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten sidetracked.
This is not in video games anymore. Bill Berry leaves REM. I remember that was a big deal at the time. Also some... So I guess, I don't know, these are like one of those like fun factoids, I guess, maybe. Well, this one's like some history, I guess, but November 12th, Mary McLeish is elected the 8th president of Ireland in succession to Mary Robinson, the first time in the world that one woman has succeeded another as elected heads of state. And I like that they're also both named Mary.
That's such an Irish name.
Yeah, I guess I'm not surprised. But November 19th in Des Moines, Iowa, Bobby McCoy gives birth to septuplets in the second known case where all 7 babies are born alive, and the first in which they all survive infancy. So,
Preceding the Octomom to come later.
yeah. This is like we're
Horrifying.
setting the stage.
Yeah. This woman was so angry, 15 years later? Come on.
I could do better. Yeah.
I had the record.
Somebody get that fish away from me!
Aero Fighter's Assault is a combat flight simulator developed by Paradigm Entertainment. It is the 6th and final game in the Aero Fighters series and the only to use 3D graphics. You'll choose from one of 4 pilots, each of whom flies a unique plane with a different special weapon and missile. In the main campaign, you'll fight through a series of levels with various objectives, often defeating a boss like the Leviathan ship or Spriggan aircraft, or enemy fighters. There are also a couple bonus stages. Additionally, the game features a practice mode and a boss attack mode, as well as a multiplayer deathmatch mode where 2 players face off against each other in either the sky, ocean, or desert stage.
It sounds like it has a lot of cool features. Sounds pretty fun.
Sounds like it.
I feel like it's unfair to say it's like the final game of this series or whatever when it's like it's really kind of like a complete spin-off from what I can gather. I'm not that I actually got to play a little bit of the first one when we went to the arcade over the weekend, but looking at all of them, I'm like, this doesn't seem like it's even in the same series. But it's that time of like early 3D where we're like, how do we reinvent some of these series? Jeremy, you marked this down as like a game that you were interested in talking about. So I guess I'm curious, what's your personal history with this game?
Yeah, I'm not a huge flight sim guy in general, but I've had a ton of fun, over the years playing different things. I tend to like more arcadey stuff like Star Fox and things like that rather than hardcore sims. But I remember renting this back when it was new, and because we're still kind of, at this point in time, we're still kind of a little bit in the afterglow of the Top Gun cultural dominance of the mid to late 80s, and so fighter jets were still super cool. And
Oh yeah,
I mean they are still kind of cool, but there
Top
was
Gun's
still
back. Yeah.
yeah, well it's back. We did it again, but yeah, I remember playing it and renting it, and to be totally honest, I don't really remember this game at all. Because when I knew we was going to be doing this, I went on eBay and picked up a copy in box because it's not very valuable. I think I paid $25 for it or something.
Yeah.
And I genuinely did not remember much about it when I did play it this time. Although I do have some history with the previous games in the series.
Oh, okay.
And then I have a Neo Geo MVS, the arcade hardware, which is significantly cheaper than buying the home versions of Neo Geo games. But I have a multi-cart that has Aero Fighters 2 and Aero Fighters 3 on it, or Sonic Wings, it was called in Japan. And I played those quite a bit. They're really fun 2D shoot-'em-ups, and there is a lot of personality and charm in those games that does not make it to this game.
I'd agree.
So
yeah.
That's kind of my background with it.
Yeah, I only played a little bit of the one, but I could tell there was like a lot more personality in it for sure. Leo, I kind of asked you if you'd be down to talk about this. I didn't know if you had any background or experience with it at all. So do you, and what's that all about?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The only exposure I think I've had to this series has been the Dolphin Spanky, who appears as a bonus character. Apparently, he is also in Aero Fighters Assault for the N64, which is really funny.
Oh.
But yeah, that's my only exposure. I have played growing up, I played a lot of basic flight sims for Macintosh and a couple of air combat games that were like on demo discs. And then like I did a little bit of design for this and research into like flight combat mechanics when I worked on some vehicles for Halo, because we have aerial vehicles, and I'm like, well, aerial combat is its own. It's like a kind of a physics problem, and so I was kind of looking into like what the mechanics are behind trying to shoot someone down when you're in an airplane, and yeah, like that is kind of my exposure to it. So when I came in, it was like pretty much no context. I'm going in completely new, completely fresh to this game.
Okay, well, I guess based on your like experience with that sort of thing, what did you think of this game in that context? I guess.
Yeah. Like I don't have much context for Aerofire's Assault, but like as a flight sim, I was kind of impressed because I loaded in and I crashed immediately because I had to remap the controls correctly. I used an emulator and a PlayStation 4 controller to kind of do everything, but it really kind of works. You can use the D-pad to like change your view and like lock on the camera to your target, and so you're swapping between that and like your forward view, and your forward view has like, they don't replicate the entire heads-up display for like a fighter jet, but they have like enough elements there that you can kind of understand what's going on. I was really impressed that they had like a target lead, and it seemed to me that somebody who flew like an F-14 probably gave them some pointers like, oh, it should be doing this, and so I was really impressed by that. Like I found the aerial combat to be like, even though it was like chugging at like 15 or 10 frames a second at times, I was like, oh, I have to like maneuver myself to get behind somebody, get on point of somebody, and then like shoot them down. And then you have a trade-off between using your missiles, which can hit, but like enemies have countermeasures, and they'll like shoot them off, and so then the missiles just kind of don't land and they go everywhere else. And I thought that was like really impressive. So it's a nice kind of trade-off between using your guns, which takes more skill, versus using your missiles, which kind of takes like a little more preparation. And I found like the first mission is like, oh, there's a bomb that went off in the South Pole, and now the whole world is melted and flooded, and Tokyo is also flooded, and there's this huge robot that you have to blow up, and I'm just like, what is happening? I thought the scenery was like, I mean, I could kind of get it, because it's like they can't make a whole city on the N64 and fly over
let's
it.
Just flood it.
Let's just like flood it so that it's like one solid color. We only have like a couple of buildings, but it's like really striking. So I was impressed by that, and I was impressed by like the flight computer too, just kind of calling out like various like combat situations. It was like I was impressed, I think, even though it was like chugging at 15 frames a second for most of the time. I really enjoyed it. Like all the sort of things you would want in a combat flight sim are kind of represented. It's not a one-to-one simulation of like you're not going to like have like a DCS combat simulator type of thing where you're running on the airplane and you're like having to worry about a bunch of variables that don't make sense. So like I think like it's very I like it for what it is.
To kind of build on that, I think I totally agree. I think there's a lot to like here, but without getting too far ahead, I think a trend for both of this episode's games is they really felt like they could use another 2 or 3 months polish to take the good parts that do exist and turn it into something more engaging. But I will say, so you mentioned you use the PS4 controller. I think this might be one of the scenarios where the Nintendo 64 controller is like the ideal control method, because the thumbstick on the 64 mimics more closely a real flight stick, I think, than the layout of the dual stick controllers we have now. Maybe that's just more like a mental thing for me, but it sort of feels like, oh, we got the stick, it's right here in the middle. Thematically it works.
I think Leo, you mentioned like it felt like they at least talked to someone about, someone who's flown or whatever these aircrafts, but I guess too I was looking like Paradigm. Before they developed games, they did like develop flight sims and stuff like that. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
why.
They're also the folks that did Pilot Wing 64.
yes,
So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah. So they're not, which was a little strange because the frame rate's a lot better in that game.
Yeah, I guess there's less going on. You're not shooting.
Yeah.
You shoot Mecha Hawk, but that's about it. And you shoot some targets, you know. McKenna, you were completely new to the game, as was I. I'd never heard of this. I actually didn't even know about the Sonic Wings / Aero Fighters series, but now I'm kind of interested in becoming a fan. But anyways, you hadn't heard of this, played it. What'd you think?
It has a lot of elements that I think are neat, but it doesn't like totally deliver for me. Like I feel like I wanted to like it, but like actually playing it, I was like, I think I'd rather play like Star Fox.
Yeah, I felt similarly. Like Leo, you mentioned the frame rate, like that was really tough. Like I think I messaged Jeremy this too. Like I didn't want to be. I feel bad. I don't like being like that mean, but like I got kind of a headache playing the game sometimes. Like it, and we haven't played a game so far that has like really made me feel like I can't look at this. I kept trying to go back to it, and I would play it for a little bit, and it had like cool visual design elements that Leo mentioned, but and especially looking at later parts of the game I didn't even get to, like looked really cool. And in fact, a lot of like magazines and stuff at the time, and like a lot of the reviews talk about how it had really good screenshots, but when you actually played it, it wasn't as great. And that's how I felt playing it. It was just kind of I don't know. I feel bad, but it hurt to look at times. Some
of the like the sky areas where you're just in the sky and it's just clouds everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Like where am I going? What am I doing?
Yeah. I think too, like just sometimes I was having a really hard time, like compared to something like Pilot Wings. I feel like I could get a good sense of like where I was and like how far away certain things were, but in this I feel like I'm like, I think I'm looking at my radar and it looks like a ship is there, but it just didn't visually. I feel like it reminded me a little bit of some of those weird areas in Duke Nukem where we couldn't tell what was going on. I just often was like, I can't tell what's going on. I could, like, if I got near another plane and I had like the tracking thing, I could start to figure it out, and I would get into some of like the dog fights and stuff, and that would be pretty fun. But then there would be periods of time where I felt like I was just kind of like wandering around the sky trying to figure out where to go.
Well, I think in fairness to you and the rest of us playing it, flying these things in real life is incredibly difficult, and the military gives them legal drugs so they can do it. And I'm assuming we weren't all on speed when we were playing this game.
I did try different types of legal drugs to play the game, and I was like, maybe this is what's gonna.
You had that one.
I had tried different things, and I was like, maybe this will do it, because there's been plenty of games we've covered where I started playing it, and like one that I can think of was like International Superstar Soccer. I can't remember what exactly it was, but there was something about it I was like not clicking with, and then I didn't do drugs, but then just one day I like played it and I like understood it, and it was like, oh, this is amazing. But it took a couple plays, to like it to really sink in,
and not drugs.
No, yeah, maybe that's the difference. There was no drugs involved, but it eventually clicked. Whereas like this, I just couldn't. I restarted a game multiple times, and I could never get past the third level or something where it's like there's like the stealth.
There's a bunch of stealth bombers, and then that's the one I also got stuck on.
Okay.
So
it was just.
Don't feel too bad.
I got past that one. I thought that one was kind of neat because I did like the idea of like the sort of anime super stealth, the size of a city kind of thing. Like that was fun.
That was
And I
tight,
did
yeah.
get past that. I think I got to about the 5th or 6th mission, and then I got a game over, and I was like, I just don't have it in me to do that again.
Oh. Yeah,
So I also felt a little bad.
Oh, for Aero Fighters. Yeah, we usually try to like get through the game and like give it its due. And we tried different. We played multiplayer, and it was also a bit of a slog. I feel like.
Yeah, I spent most of the time turning around trying to find you.
I think there are just a few pieces that, again, I feel it really feels like they just needed a little more time in the oven. But this is like when this was released is like the release window for the holidays, and they were under so much pressure to get it out in time to sell for Christmas. But like, some of the missions you would start with 3 other wingmen, alongside, and then they just kind of went away, and it was like, why did I even see them? They don't interact with me really. And it felt like it was almost doing a Star Fox thing, but it just didn't quite pull it together. And yeah, the story, there's something there that's kind of interesting, but it's just not foregrounded enough that I even really understood what was happening or why I should care about any of it. It was like just a little bit more framing, a little more polish, I think would have gone a long way. Because I think, like you said, Leo, I think the flight model itself works really well for the most part. Mm-hmm. It's just not quite a full game, really.
I have to wonder if they had I have to wonder if like the AI is what really slows the game down, because the fighter planes that you fight do a lot of pretty advanced maneuvers. They do figure out pretty quickly that they are shooting at them, and they try to do evasive maneuvers, which is hard to do. Like, it's hard to make AI that does that, and it's hard to make AI that does that on an N64, which
sure
has limited resources, to say the least. So I wonder if like that's kind of what slowed the game down.
Again, I'm glad to have someone like you, Leo, on that can at least point us to something like that I maybe wouldn't have known to like appreciate, the game, or what went into making this game, because otherwise I would have no idea.
Right. I mean, I have theories, but like that's mostly unsubstantiated. I mean,
sure.
Part of that is also like I did a practice mode, which seemed to run pretty good, and then I immediately go into a mission, and it's just like chugging at 5 frames a second. I'm like, oh, oops.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have speculating, but I think they have a fairly sophisticated flight model that's a lot of physics calculations, and then dumping AI on top of that and trying to run the sound clips and whatnot on top of that on the N64 is asking a lot.
There was some decent, there was some okay stuff with the presentation. It could have been better, but I did like the character designs were cool, a little bit of the story, and like there was the voice acting and stuff like that. The music was all right. So, there's.
And I'll say, in my professional life, I'm a geography professor, and so the virtual globe at the opening with the mission stuff, and you have the wireframe looking globe. I was like, that's pretty cool. I'm digging that.
I will say, just because there have been games we've covered, where we didn't know at the time, but somewhere out there it was someone's like, like their specialty, their like favorite game. So if there's someone out there who has like a secret love for this, and you ever want to come try to like win us over, we'll gladly have you on.
Educate us.
Yeah. Leo's already started the journey for me a little bit.
The fact that they put like a Gremlin X29 in, which is like the bonus, it's the bonus plane that you win if you beat all the bonus stages, which is really hard. The fact that they put that in and it's being flown by a dolphin is just really funny to me.
Yeah, I did.
We gotta want to say.
Yeah, so that's, like I said earlier, that's one of the things about the 2D versions, especially Aero Fighters 2 and 3, is that they really got wacky with it. Like, there was the dolphin pilot, there was a baby that's a pilot, there is a robot with the head of a man, that's a pilot, and it's almost like in like Street Fighter 2, when you finish the round, they have some quips back and forth between the stages. The pilots would do that, and the game was sort of infamous. One, for being like a little goofy with it, but two, it had really rough translation from Japanese to English, and so there was a lot of like very funny statements, that are just innocent translation mistakes, but they come off very weird. I did notice one mistake in Aero Fighters Assault, which was "your have no wingman support," which is not funny. It's just a typo.
We noticed in the manual that there were a lot of little errors like that.
Yeah, this is one of the most noteworthy manuals because of it. Where we're thinking about calling up Nick to do a manual reading episode, but it almost would have felt mean because it is just like every page has like a weird typo or grammar thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
I have the manual here. I did not read it.
Yeah, skim it if you come by anything in the episode. Feel free to shout it out. But it is like it's nothing that's like hilarious though. It's just like weird. But yeah, I think if anything comes out of this, I kind of want to get into and play some of those shoot 'em up games. That's a genre that I'm really bad at. There's always so many bullets on the screen. I can't tell what's going on, but it just from a vibes perspective, it's very cool. And so maybe this will be the series that'll I'll officially get into it. Beyond, I like Galaga. I can play Galaga because it's very slow.
I thought in the second level, when the huge submarine just kind of pops out of the water, I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. It's neat that the game can kind of do little moments like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. Like the other thing too that I liked is like the splash screen just like plays this like cool couple of notes and it just says video system on top. Like I might steal that for something because it's just like I thought it was really cool.
I feel like that happens in a lot of these sort of games that are like they don't rise above a lot of the others, but they will have like this one moment that has like insanely cool vibes. It's like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the bosses were very cool. The submarine, the big stealth wing. I don't know if any of you got to one of the later stages where you're defending the space shuttle. It's just like sitting on the launch pad. That was pretty fun. Like I said, there's some really cool moments here, and it's like, man, I wish this was just like 15% better.
For sure. Mm-hmm. I saw there's an ice cave. You can go to space, and like you have like the skybox has like Earth, like up in the out in space. It looked pretty tight.
Dude, I'm getting baked.
Automobili Lamborghini is a racing game where you'll get to drive vehicles based on real-life Lamborghinis on 6 different tracks. You can choose to play a single race with no checkpoints or time limits, or arcade mode, which has checkpoints you have to reach in a certain amount of time. You can also do time trials or championship mode, where you race through several tracks and get points based on your position at the end of each race. If your fuel starts to run low or your tires start to wear down, you'll need to make a pit stop to fuel up or change tires. Up to 4 players can compete in multiplayer races.
There's like the other cars in there too. Which I couldn't
other,
tell
like,
you
Italian,
which one's which.
Ferrari.
There's a Bugatti EB110, which I thought was interesting. Mm-hmm. There's like a McLaren F1, I believe. Like a couple of different Ferraris, and then a couple of different Porsches, I think. Yeah,
I think there's a Ferrari F40, maybe an F50, and then I know there's a Ferrari or a Porsche 959. But the Lamborghinis are licensed. The other cars are generic knockoffs that sort of look like the real car.
Oh, see, I thought they were the real thing just because I was reading like a game fact, and I just trusted them that it was the real thing. So, Leo, we had you on previously for a racing game episode, and we discussed, you created the Auto Museum 64. I don't believe you covered this game in that.
No, I did. I didn't cover it in the podcast, but there are car models from Automobili Lamborghini in the museum. That was like one of the ones that I tried to get. It was a little difficult. Like, it was a couple of years ago since I made it, so my memory's a little fuzzy. But I do remember the textures were particularly difficult and kind of tedious to kind of reconstruct in Blender after I'd like ripped them out of the emulator. But I was like, I want to represent this game because like it was important to me, obviously, but also just the car models in it were like really interesting. There's a lot of 90s supercars that are pretty well represented, so I was like, I'm gonna try to at least do this. And
you had some history with this game a little bit then?
Yeah, well, this is like a pretty regular rental. Like whenever we would like rent N64 games as kids, like Automobili Lamborghini like was rented a couple of times. There was a shortcut on one of the tracks that I had memorized from childhood. Like there's a specific wall that you have to like clip through in order to get to like a secret pathway, and I remembered it, and it was still there.
Oh.
And I was like, oh wow, that was fun. Like as like whenever we rented it, we would never do like the championship mode because I think it was just too intimidating for us, because the cars are just super twitchy, and so they're really hard to control, especially like when you're a child, and especially if you have like the N64 controller, which has a really creepy analog stick. But it was always just kind of a thing of fascination because you normally don't get to drive a Lamborghini, and I think that's kind of the central fantasy of the game is driving a Lamborghini at 200 miles an hour. So that's kind of the main draw. And I think like that's reflected in like the first level, which is like a huge oval because you just like, I just want to go fast, and the game's like, okay, you can go fast. Go for it.
I love that level.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you had some history with this one as well, right?
Yeah, this was also one we rented. I think I might have only rented it once at the time. I have a copy now, but yeah, I do remember playing it. But again, not unlike Aero Fighters Assault, I know I rented it, but I did not really remember this. It just did not make as much of an impression as I assume the game devs would have hoped.
Okay.
I have thoughts about that. We can get into that a little later. But yeah, I do remember playing it, and I remember being a little bit underwhelmed. But I think there's some really strong bones on this one. Like coming from last main episode with San Francisco Rush, I think that's a better, more fun racing game, but it's a lot jankier in comparison to like the core of the model of this one and how the driving works overall.
Yeah. I would say in that one was more fun. Just it was a fun game, and you could fly around and blow up and stuff. But this one was more fun to just like do races in. I felt like, if that makes sense, to like just go around the track and do races. Leo, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that compared to Rush or even some of the games we covered earlier in the run.
Yeah, I think at first, like, it was really interesting. If you get used to the handling, then, like, it's very particular because you have to... The cars accelerate really slowly, at least the Lamborghinis do. So slowing down or, like, hitting into the walls is, like, really punishing. So you're very much incentivized to, like, try to thread a needle to, like, make it through and lose as little speed as possible. And that's really interesting in some of the levels. But in some of the other levels where there's like lots of turns and the camera doesn't quite follow the car enough to like go around these really tight turns, it becomes really frustrating. And additionally, there's like tire wear like throughout the when you play the championship mode, you get tire wear and like fuel use, and you have to pit stop, and as you drive, like, your tires get worse and worse, and eventually you just start spinning out, which happened to me several times. So there's no real indication that your tires are about to go, so you kind of have to like guess when to take a pit stop, which I think is like really interesting because you can kind of notice the tires like breaking loose more and more, and you have to kind of judge based off how long the track is and like what lap you're on and be like, okay, I will take a pit stop in the middle of this race, or I'll have to take 2 pit stops because the race is so long that like you have to replace your tires twice. I thought that was really interesting. The pit stop mini game, I couldn't figure it out at first. I was like, "What does it want me to do?"
So
And
sick.
Yeah.
And then I figured it out, and then I was like, "Oh, well, that's kind of interesting." Like you just kind of wiggle the analog stick to fuel it up, and then you rotate it to like change the tires, and that's kind of fun to do.
A little Mario Party moment.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think my first pit stop took like 45 seconds because I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be doing something."
Yeah, I'll say I had a pretty good time with this game, but McKenna, it was new. This is new for both of us. I had never even heard of this game, and I guess when I just saw the name, like I was like, okay, that like it. You never know. It seemed I didn't know if that was cool or not. That it's just like this car, company or whatever. I was like, this could be cool, or maybe a lame licensed thing. I had no idea. But when I actually played it, almost right away, I thought it was pretty fun. But McKenna, what did you think?
I think you enjoyed this a lot more than I did.
I played it a lot.
I didn't dislike it. Like I think most of the time if you give me a racing game, I'm gonna enjoy it to some extent. But coming off of Extreme G and San Francisco Rush, this one's a bit disappointing. I didn't have as much fun with this.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as exciting to me. And I will say I did like the little pit stop mini games. I feel like I wasn't in the pit stop that much, but yeah, I did like turning the wheels. And I think you called the fuel. You said it was like, oh, this is like Stardew Valley fishing or something.
Yeah, it's like you want to push it up, but not too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the mini game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't get into the racing too much.
No.
I did,
It
I
was
really
fine.
did. Because, like, we talked about it with San Francisco Rush, but, like, there was only, like, really a couple of tracks on it where I felt like I could compete, basically, without, just hitting the wall and exploding over and over, which was fun in its own way. But, like, a lot of the courses were just more, I'm just having fun here. But, like, certainly in I was playing on easy, but like in arcade mode, some of the courses were I couldn't beat them, but in like the championship, like it was like a fun mode, and I like that they had like the different types of they had the arcade mode, the championship, so it kind of gave me more to like go back to, and that's been a big thing for me with racing games. Like we compared the ways they handled that in MRC versus Top Gear and Rush, and similarly when we were talking about Top Gear and MRC, I found myself playing Top Gear more, not even because I thought it was necessarily a better racing game, but because like the single player modes that it had were more engaging and kept me like coming back to play. So this one, I feel like it had some fun variety, and like you could customize the championship and stuff. So that's what kept me. I kept being like, okay, let's try out this mode or like this difficulty and stuff. A lot of it I couldn't do. A lot of it was pretty hard, but it's still fun.
I did see that reviews from the time noted this. Generally speaking, when I was playing it, I found the AI to be incredibly bad and very easy to win the races as long as I didn't get too loose and run into the wall. Which did kind of limit the appeal a little bit, because it was like, all right, well, I'm like a full lap ahead of these guys, and there's only 6 laps. Like, this is not... And I'm not that great at racing games, so...
Yeah, and it was like kind of it was weird because it was just like there's like novice and professional, you know what I mean? So like I did have that a little bit. It depended on the course, because some were still tough, so I feel like the AI would do okay against me. But then when I bump it up to the hardest mode, it was just like I couldn't even didn't stand a chance. So there was not like it didn't have like a progression for me where it was like I felt like it wasn't like, okay, what's the next step in getting better? It was like it's too hard. Unprofessional. It had an okay like style and aesthetic, but just from like a performance, like it ran like really well, and like
Yes.
it handled having multiple cars going on. Like that's been one thing we've kind of compared about, is like how much does this really make you feel like you're actually racing other cars. And this did an okay job, and when we played multiplayer together as well, like it was us and some other cars, and it actually like ran pretty decently. I'm not like, I don't know like frame rate stuff that well, but like I could tell like it ran a little bit better. Definitely some of the like design aesthetic stuff, it was like a lot more simple compared to like, I feel like San Francisco Rush had a lot of like crazy stuff going on. But yeah, that made a difference to me, that it played okay. It played solidly.
One of the things I have in my notes was N64 fog is back, baby. Like, because you get into some city levels and it's just like, oh wow, I can't see down the road. It's so foggy. Yeah, the city level was like really interesting to kind of explore, because after I finished like the series, I went back and looked for shortcuts, and I found them, because you just like go through some gates, but like you can. It feels like they look like they're solid, but you can just clip through them, and then there's like a hidden passageway behind them, which I thought was like
interesting.
Really interesting.
Oh, it's like intended for you to just
drive
through it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't think again, going back to the last main episode, it's all about the shortcuts in Rush. I don't think I found a single shortcut in this game. I'm gonna have to fire it up again and just run into the wall a bunch.
It's like Doom. All of a sudden. Duke Nukem.
Yeah, they're hard to find. I mean, if you drive in reverse, like the exit of the shortcut is usually visible. So, like, just drive around in reverse, and then you find like the exit, and then just follow it all the way to the entrance.
To throw in as well with the sort of the aesthetic of it all, a couple things I have. One is I thought the music was pretty decent in it. It definitely was trying to do like. It was a little bit more, maybe more generic, but I felt like it kind of was trying to do the extreme G, Tetrasphere, like kind of EDM sort of thing. It did. I mean, honestly, I played this game a lot while like watching wrestling, so I guess the music was more, lower in the mix. But I thought it was. I think a lot of that stuff, visually and musically and everything, it was like serviceable. It like. Got the job done.
Yeah. It didn't jump out at me, but it worked. It was fine.
Definitely felt like somebody on the team had an Atari ST and tracking software and was like, guys, I got this.
Yep. That was the era.
Another aesthetic thing was that this game sort of has a photo mode.
Oh yeah, look mode. I was all about this as a child, because it's like, oh wow, you can look at the car. That's cool. And that was all. That's all I really had. But
you can get some sick shots with it.
Yeah.
You did this during a pit stop, right?
Yeah, during pit stop. Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's got some good looks.
And then once you get it framed right, you get out your film camera and you point it at the television, and you hope the exposure works.
It's notable that 4 people can play this game.
Yes.
That's not really happening with other racing games except for Mario Kart.
Extreme G.
Is that
has
it's 4?
Yeah, and I think that might be it.
Yeah, I think everything else just had 2-player.
Yeah. I feel like there's, like I said, even with the multiplayer thrown in, like there's a decent amount of variety. I could see how it could be a regular rental for you guys back in the day or whatever. Like,
I think this is kind of in that era a perfect rental, because again, a $60 or $70 cartridge for a game that's pretty good and it's fun, but it's not like mind blowing. The rental is like the perfect sweet spot. Whereas, if you dropped all that cash in $1997 and then 2 weeks later, you're like, I don't know if this has got the staying power. I may have made a mistake buying this outright.
Hopefully that comes in handy for people listening now. Just
Well, it
rent,
is-
rent, don't buy.
Should we do a new rating system? Like buy, rent, don't get it.
Go down to the red box, and it'll pop. The cartridge will pop right out of your red box at the grocery store.
Can you imagine? That would be sick. We got to start the N64 red box.
Oh my god.
N box.
Yeah, that'll go well.
Oh, one other notable thing about this is it was developed by Titus, which they'll come up more on the show for sure.
Yes.
So that's a foreshadowing.
They made the Superman game, right? Are these the same people?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Oh, wow.
This is, to my memory, this is maybe the best game they made on the 64, but I don't remember all of them, so I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, there were some other ones too, but we haven't covered any yet, so
Yeah.
we just
In my mind, Titus is sort of infamous for being kind of a B to C tier publisher compared to most. I may be being unfair to them, but it always felt like that game's just not quite as good. Whenever one of their stuff, came across.
nothing really comes to mind off the top of my head when I think of them, but I know they're the mascot. They had the little fox guy. I know there were some games with that, but yeah, and then I know Superman. that's like a flight simulator, right?
Yeah.
It's very Pilot Wings.
It
Right.
seems like every N64 game was like, okay, if you have any flying at all, you have to fly through the rings. You have to have a fly through the rings minigame. It's a requirement. We can't certify your game unless you have this.
They wouldn't put the seal of approval on
you
it.
want that seal.
It's the
The rings in
Miyamoto,
there.
Miyamoto sitting at Nintendo headquarters in Japan, like, does it have rings? Send it back. We need rings.
No, thank you.
One other thing in my notes was the Bugatti EB110 is my nemesis. He was always in second place, always behind me. So that was my nemesis car. I think that's the last of my notes.
From a car person's perspective, what you did say, like there were some cool cars in this. Like what were like the standout ones for you?
I think the EB110 is probably the standout one. Usually in a racing game, you will have like your Lamborghinis, your Ferraris, your Porsches. But the EB110 is like kind of a curveball. This is back when some rich French people were like, we're going to bring back Bugatti by like spending $1 billion on this like incredibly expensive car. And there's a whole history. Like there's some YouTube videos about like the history of the EB110 and the like great lengths that they did to like bring the brand back. And then there's a huge global recession in the 90s that just kind of cratered the whole thing. But yeah, you never see an EB110 like in this era. Like you only really see it in like high-end racing sims. So like seeing that was kind of really special.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, that is kind of a weird choice for the era, but it is a cool, fun one. And I do think it's funny that, like you said, French guy spending billions of dollars, and it turns out the solution is just sell it to VW.
Right.
I'm not like a car person at all. Like when I see like really nice cars in real life, I'm usually just like, oh fuck this guy or whatever, But then when I play like a game like this, or I watch like the Fast and the Furious, I'm like, they've never made anything cooler than a car. It's like the coolest shit ever. I'm very susceptible to the car propaganda, but when I see one in real life, I get mad. Not any car, but you know what I'm talking about.
Just cars in general. I understand that.
Yeah, when I see a very cool or rare car in public, I'm like, my first thought is, oh wow, that's very cool. I'm interested in seeing that. And my second thought is, person who owns that is either extremely cool or the biggest asshole I've ever met. No in between.
No.
Like the cars I'm excited about now are like 90s sports sedans. Like I was in Minneapolis this week and I got to drive my friend's Peugeot MI16, which is the last car that Peugeot sold in America. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It is like this like French sports sedan, and it has
That's dope.
French sports sedan problems, but it was very fun to drive. it like if you just saw one on the street, you'd just be like, "Wow, that looks like a Jetta," but it's French and
Yeah.
pretty rare.
And because it's French, under the hood, it's extremely weird.
Oh
And
yeah,
probably
like,
performs better.
like under the hood, there's a huge sticker that says "Made in France for the American market," like just in big letters. So you're like, "Oh, okay, that's why this is like this."
When I see cars like that, I'm usually like, that's cool.
I like seeing a Beetle car out in the wild. That's what I get excited about. It doesn't happen so much anymore.
Yeah, I feel like they're out of style.
They stopped making them.
My friend has a original Beetle, and it broke down one day at a gas station, and I was like walking down, so I like saw the car, and I'm like, "Oh hey, what's up?" And he's like, "It stopped working. I think the spaghetti's angry." And he's like under his hood, like looking at all the wiring, and it's just this big mass of like wires that he's like trying to trace. And I'm like, I have no idea what any of this does. Good luck, buddy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the good news with those Beetles, the vintage ones especially, is worst case you just get like 4 or 5 more people and they'll lift it up and carry it over out of harm's way.
I mean, I did help him push it. It was an easy thing to push, but
Yeah.
the problem ended up being he needed a whole new ignition system because his had worn out.
Well, this is very off topic, but if you're ever in Nashville, there's a very cool car museum that's almost exclusively weird Eastern European cars.
Oh, I would be very interested in that, actually.
What's it called?
It's called the Lane Motor Museum.
Oh yeah, I know of them. I've seen some of their videos. They have an amazing collection.
Oh yeah, they've got maybe the biggest collection of Tatras, which is a Czech company, outside of Europe for sure. And you think, oh, car museum, I'm going to go see Grandpa's Camaro or whatever. And it's like, no, this is far cooler.
Yeah.
Thank you once again. It's great to have the guests who can come in and talk a little bit about cars and save us from having to try to do it.
To drag it back to the game, I did have one other big note that I wanted to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no like real damage to the vehicles when you crash in this, and I think there's 2 factors at play here. Again, compare and contrast to San Francisco Rush, where half of the point is to bash your car up and make it explode. One, it costs a whole hell of a lot more to model that damage physically, on the back end. And 2, at this era, when you had licensed vehicles, very often the manufacturers would say, you can use the vehicle, you cannot crash it. You are not allowed to damage our vehicle. And so I think a lot of devs at the time were like, oh, thank God, that would be so much more complicated. But that jumped out at me coming from Rush.
I was thinking a little bit about, like, I guess the physics and stuff, and I guess the damage too, because, like, Leo, you talked about back on our Top Gear episode, like, the way they had, like, damage on those vehicles, and it was, like, fairly unique how they handled that.
Yeah, they were, like, deforming polygons a little bit to, like, make the mesh kind of, like, looked like it had taken impact. And that's when you have like so few polygons, you can kind of get away with that a little bit. With like higher fidelity ones, like you're swapping out little bits of geometry for like, oh, now we have a crumpled hood or we have a crumpled front end or back end. And I think that's how San Francisco Rush kind of does it. And like the higher fidelity you go, like the higher fidelity the damage has to be. So that became less and less of a thing that people are willing to do just because it's so expensive. Now you have like Beam and G, where like the whole car is just one big soft body physics simulation. So everything is like incredibly accurate, and it's just fun to like crash things into each other.
That's cool. I was also thinking about the physics just because, Top Gear had this crazy physics where like if you hit like a rock funny, you would flip out into oblivion. And then, but it was a fun game, but that was kind of frustrating. San Francisco Rush has crazy physics, but where they're like leaning into it,
Yeah.
They're like,
You're flying.
now I felt like, I think this game it had a little bit of that. Like you'd go off of some, little ramps or like there's like a bit of a dip and there's a little bit of like air time and stuff like that, but not. It was more down to earth, and I honestly like felt like it felt kind of good like in that sense, and also like when you would slam into other cars, like it was kind of fun because you could kind of like on certain turns you could like use them to like get tighter inside the turn basically. And it had a little bit of like slamming some some toy cars together like that. It was all good.
I really enjoyed it. Like, what stood out to me is like I could counter steer out of a skid, which normally if you skid at all in a game from this era, like you just spin out immediately. And counter steering just kind of doesn't do anything. But in this one, it kind of works like for a split second. So I was kind of impressed by that. Like, because I know how hard that is to do, like on a regular game, like getting anything to spin out, one, and two, making sure that you can like actually steer out of a skid in a way that's controllable. Because usually, like once the physics let go, just kind of you're just at the mercy of Sir Isaac Newton at that point.
Hell yeah, that's cool. And you can do good donuts in the game too. I was doing some donuts for a while, and it looked pretty cool, especially in the photo viewer mode.
Oh, I'll have to try that.
Yeah. If I was going to nitpick the physics, which is me saying I'm going to, I feel like I'm being unfair because this is 1997, right? And the hardware we're on and all that stuff, and I have the benefit of playing in almost 30 more years of more sophisticated racing games since then. But I think one of the limitations of this era is like the digital controls. Like we have the analog stick, right? But like your throttle and your brake are just a button. There's no, it's on or it's off. And by PS2, you had the pressure sensitive buttons, and then we eventually got to real analog triggers for this kind of stuff. But like, if you were in a real Lamborghini Diablo and you went from 0 throttle to 100% throttle, you would not go anywhere. You would just start spinning in place. And I know they kind of have to fudge that a little bit to make the game playable and fun. But there were a couple times where I was like, I'm kind of fighting the controller and the way they had to sort of work around that, which was a little frustrating every once in a while.
Sure.
But I think they did it well. Again, this is a nitpick. This is not a real complaint. Just more of a commentary on the tech of the time and how we've evolved since then. How it's easier to get that nuance in your inputs now.
I can appreciate that. I'm still I'm not like an expert on these games, but I feel like this year alone we've played so many. Like every episode has had a racing game in it basically for a while. So I don't know. I've like developed, but I think it led to getting to this one. And it reminded me of, we mentioned in the last episode, but Mace: The Dark Ages, where I had played so many varying good to crappy fighting games, and then I got to this one and this racing game, and it was like pretty solid, pretty competent, that I found myself like enjoying it more than I probably ever would have back in the day,
Yeah, if you want to see the real world implications of that 0 to 100% throttle, there are so many compilations on YouTube and social media of people leaving car shows in things like Dodge Challenger Hellcats and Corvettes and Mustangs, and then some of the Italian cars stomping on the throttle, immediately losing control and running into a power line. When you have, in real life, when you have a car with like 600 horsepower, it's actually quite difficult to drive. You have to be very careful.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't even try it, no.
Yeah. Leave the traction control on.
You climb into the Lamborghini, the beautiful 12-cylinder monster. You put the pedal to the metal and you just go! You tasted the burning, stinking rubber. You feel the road as she races at you. 8 cars, 6 tracks, 200 miles per hour. Bellissimo! Sì, questa, baby, è davvero stupid fast! Automobili Lamborghini for Nintendo 64!
In stores and going fast.
Speaking of racing, this is a great conversation. This is a great episode. But our next episode, we are covering another racing game, actually. Because we're going to be talking about Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
a massive game
Nice.
for the N64.
Yes.
Thanks to both you guys for coming back on. It was a really fun time. Thanks for enlightening us with your car knowledge, and your flight sim knowledge.
A little bit.
It was convincing, I'll say. Leo, you got anything you'd like to plug?
Not right now, no. Unfortunately, it's funny, the last thing I plugged in the last podcast was our game project, which has since been canceled. So if you're listening to this,
I know.
I'm
sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I have nothing to plug right now, unfortunately. But thank you for the opportunity.
It's always great to talk to you, and I will replug the Auto Museum 64. We'll have that in the link again. It's because it's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that.
I have threatened to make a version for the PlayStation because I found an emulator that allows you to rip models from PlayStation games. So, and I am also unemployed, which is the conditions that I made the last museum in. So maybe history repeats itself.
Let's get it going. Yeah. I would love to see that. That would be so I appreciate anything like that lets you just kind of chill in the moment. So cool. Jeremy, anything
I love that a lot. Yeah. Again, still no podcasts of my own to promote, but I'm gonna promote.
Come on, you've had a month to get one going.
A month. I was legitimately 50% joking with a friend about starting a similar podcast about the PC Engine library, but I do not have time to do that.
I feel you.
No, you know what? I'm gonna promote the concept of solidarity and supporting one another, which I see a lot of in a lot of online gaming communities. Well, half of the online gaming communities. The other half are full of psychos, but we're on the good side.
We are. You know, that's great to hear actually right now. And I'll say both of these guests are good people, and you want to go follow them on Blue Sky. What are your specific handles? I should have written this down, but
I think you added me to that starter pack, and I've gotten so many people following me from that, which is cool. But it is spurring me to take a bunch of pictures of my my collection. I'm going to post all that at some point here.
Your invalid handle right now because
what the hell's that?
They're having issues today right now with all the.
We are invalid handle.
We're invalid handle right now.
Okay, I was like, did I get banned or something? What the hell? I didn't post anything. No, I think it's fmonk, just the letter FMONK at whatever the BSKY social, the standard. I can't remember what it is. But yeah.
Perfect.
You could find me probably.
Leo, if you want to plug your Blue Sky.
Yeah, I am Hello Jed at bluesky.social, I think. So...
Hell yeah. Just both good follows, both you guys always post, cool stuff as, it's just cool. You guys are great especially retro games, cars. We also see some stuff
unhinged shit posts all the time.
Unhinged shit posts.
Yeah, at some point you're gonna see some pictures of me working on a broken Saab that's in my garage right now.
Oh God! Wow.
Here we go. Okay.
Good luck.
You see, Leo. I saw you you do wrestling posts sometimes, and I was going to include this. I usually try to avoid it if the guests don't really have any background with it, because I'm like, we don't want to hear about wrestling all the time. But in this timeline of whatever we're in, November 1997, this was when the infamous Montreal Screwjob happened.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Just a little bit of extra flashback tidbit for you there.
Oh, I should watch that at some point. I've been watching some old wrestling in between mostly AEW stuff, but I did see the Undertaker versus Mankind Hell in a Cell match for the first time a while ago, and I was like,
oh hell yeah.
Oh my god.
Speaking of unhinged, that's an unhinged match, yeah.
I'm not a wrestling guy, quote unquote, but I am familiar with the screw job, and I did once go to hear now I forgot his real name, Mankind speak.
Mick Foley.
Mick Foley, yeah. Wonderful man. Great evening listening to him tell stories.
Or we're plugging McFoley. I don't know if he's on Blue Sky.
He seems like a good guy.
Yeah. McKenna, anything you want to plug? Follow McKenna on YouTube.
YouTube?
Harvest Gamer.
Yeah.
Mirthwood videos
Harvest
going up.
Gamer Nicholas. Yeah, I just had a Mirthwood gameplay video get 2,500 views.
Nice.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's going up. Yeah, the numbers are going up.
Yeah, I'm like, oh wow, the numbers. They're going. I like that.
So go help. All right, cool. Well, yeah, this is a great episode. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you when we talk about Diddy Kong Racing. And of course, we want to give a special shout out to all our Millennium Star tier patrons. So thank you, Paul, Nico, Matt, Jeremy, Lee, Kiefer, and Darren. Everyone else, go check out our page at patreon.com/flashback64.
Bombs away.